Okay, we're about to start Lab 9, and at this point we're going to need some information that's posted under course documents. Now, so far we've done everything pretty much under lab modules and assignments, but what we're going to look at today is the stuff that's under course documents. There's a lot of valuable information in here, so let's take a look at that now. Let's just go into course documents. And one of the more definitive works that you're going to need to understand if you're still having trouble with functions is the lab test 1 function review. Now the lab test function review goes through every aspect of functions, and as I said, this is the hardest part to understand in your first programming course. It goes through how you can start everything with a mainline program, how you can break it down into functions including void, explain, void, and what that means, the three basic parts: prototype, function call, function definition. It gets into get user input, where we have character input, we have, and we're missing the F flush here, but character input, integer input, float input, how to do calculations. Now I've shown how to do calculations with integers where you have one input, one output, two inputs and one output, that kind of thing. So these are the kinds of things that you're going to have to understand. And output as well, it goes through how do you pass things into an output thing, and we saw a little bit of that in one of the previous labs. But for today, what we have to get into, and this is going to be interesting, is we're going to be using switch case. And if you've read over Lab 9, it talks about that. And right now we have Lab 9 Part 1 as an if-else. So if we click on this, it's going to bring this up, and if we then Control A, we can grab all this, Control C, and then we can paste it in and work with this. So that's what we're going to do here. And once we've done that, we're going to go back and let's bring up Lab 9. So we're going to have to go back here to Lab Modules. We've already copied what we need to start off with Lab 9. And what we're going to do is let's take a look at Lab 9 itself, which is on switch case. Now what we're going to do is the switch case, it says how to do this, and the program that we've got right now does what this is supposed to do, but it's using if-else. So we're going to convert the program that uses if-else into something that actually does switch case. So most people intuitively can understand if-else, but switch case is a little bit more problematic. So we're going to say new, project, and again we're going to do Win32. This is Lab 9. And again we're going to make an empty project. When it finally gets up here, it's busy doing stuff as normal. And once we've got that done, we're going to set up the standard stuff as we always do. Empty project, as I said, finish. And once we have that done, we're going to go full screen and paste all this stuff in, remembering that if there's anything, as there will be, well, before we paste anything in, we have to add new item and C+ program, and this is going to be Lab 9A. Keep forgetting the little stuff, don't we? Okay, so now that we've got that done, let's go and do Shift-Alt-Enter and get rid of this little stuff at the back here and Control V. Let's paste all this stuff in. Now because we're not pasting from an Adobe Acrobat document, what we're going to find is everything comes in. We don't have to change quotes or anything else. This program's just going to work. And this is, as it says, programmed to use menu for choices, which is what we're getting into. We want a selection from a menu to do things. We've got the programmer's block already done. We've got our include section already done. We've got a define where we're using define pi. So every time we want to use pi, we just have the letters pi here, and it's going to substitute up here 3.141592654 and so forth. And we've got a basic menu where we're going to say choice equals menu. Now this is again using functions and choice. Notice here we have a char menu void. Nothing going in, so there's nothing here, but we're returning back a choice, and choice is a character, as you can see here. Where's choice? There, choice is a character, and therefore we have char menu void. Now let's take a look at the menu function. And all the menu function basically does is it prints a bunch of nonsense out here, which is your menu, and then it flushes and scans Bob and returns Bob, and Bob, as you can see here, is a character. And we also have a get radius function here, and your instructor will have up on the board, or should, a structured diagram, which is again a Nasse-Schneiderman diagram for this. And what we're going to do is part of the lab is to write that down and convert what we've got here from if else into switch case. So let's just see what it's saying here. And I think, no, I guess there isn't, but I want you to put it actually on the back of this sheet. You're going to do the structure diagram for this one here on the back of the sheet. Well, now that we've got the program code, and this is fairly quick to do, let's just run it up with an F5. So let's do that and see what this does. So it's building, compiling, doing all this normal stuff. Linking, that's a good thing, because even though it's warned us about a bunch of stuff that it's very fussy about, it's still going to work. So let's see what this is going to do. And we're going to add one extra little feature. So here's a menu and a menu of choices, and we can see either A, we select A, it's going to be the area of a circle, B, the volume of a sphere, or X to exit. And there's one other choice, as you may understand, none of the above. You're an idiot. Beep. So let's hit an A, and it should work for capital or little letter A. And it says radius of the circle, because we've got circles and spheres, so we know we're in the right code. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in 1. Now if you remember, area of a circle is pi r squared, and if our radius is 1, that should be pi basically 3.14, and it's a circle of radius 1, the area is 3.14. And that seems to work quite nicely. So there we are, and that's what it does. And if we keep running it, we're going to go through all these various choices. And at the end, what we're going to do is we're going to actually add one extra little structure to this. Once we're finished, we're going to put a loop around this so that we can have it constantly update on the screen. So please print this out, understand the actual code. And then the next thing that we're going to do, now that we've got it as if else, and you can see that it does work, we're going to convert this to switch case. But let's go through a couple more options here. Let's just run up F5 again. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to type capital B. It should work for capitals and small letters. Volume of a sphere. Now if I say 1, it's 4/3 pi r cubed, so that's going to be 4.19, I think, roughly. There we go. And that works. Let's run it up again with F5. And we should be able to X for exit. You chose to exit. That was another choice. And let's hit F5 one more time. And let's hit G, I'm stupid, for the big G. Invalid choice. So it goes through 4 possible cases, as we can see here. Now when we're finished, and what we're going to do, as I said, is convert this to switch case from if else, which is intuitive, and the instructor will have the structure diagram for this. It should be on the board. And what we're going to do is just start converting this to switch case. So let's get started with that little exercise. Okay, we're going to do this conversion in steps, and what I'm going to suggest you do is just put a single line comment on the if. I want you to take out the brackets that are here, and the only reason we're leaving the if here is to, when we change this to switch case, to make sure that we understand and get an idea of what the cases were that we're going to be using here. So right now it says if choice is A or little a, we'll take the brackets off. We'll also take out the else, and again we'll put a single line comment on here. Now these are just going to be places where we're going to just continue on down with this. We'll comment the ifs, leave this chunk of code, take out the else, and as I said, the ifs are just here to remind us what we have to put in. Take out these brackets, and one of the things you'll notice here is on the else, if there's only one statement, we don't need brackets around it, and that's why we've got no brackets here. So let's take out the else, and at this point we're ready to set up our switch case. Now the way it works is quite simple. We just type the word switch, S-W-I-T-C-H, and notice it highlights it in blue. Right mouse bracket, and we're going to say we're going to switch on the value that's in variable choice. Now this is sort of like a function not a function prototype, this is more like a function definition or even a chunk of code. And what we're going to do is then put brackets around what we're switching on. So there's our start of all of our choices, and the end of all of our choices is going to be down here. So we're going to put that bracket there. So this bracket is the end of our switch. This is the start of our switch. And what we're going to do here is we're going to put in case. Now case colon is a list of the cases that we need for it to do this first chunk of code. And we're going to put in case, comma, or single quote, little a, and whoops, I screwed that up. Sorry, case quote A colon quote. There we go. There's our first case. Case space single quote A single quote colon. Now we also want it to work for another case. We want it to work for the case where our input, which is choice here. So if choice is little a, it's going to do this code. If choice is big A, do this code. And these are colons. These are not semicolons. So let's take a closer look at this. So case quote A quote colon single quotes. So we can put any number of cases that we want in here. And now that we've done that, let's get rid of this, because that's what we're really saying. If it's A or big A or little a, that's how we say it this way. If it's case little a or case big A, it's going to do this code. Now we're going to do a little bit of cleanup. We're going to put the cursor here. We're going to back this up and hit a tab in here, and then we're going to tab this over to make it look pretty. So for all of the things that are case little a or big A, it's going to do this. Now notice that this is going off the screen, and what we're going to do is we're going to break this print statement here. We're going to put a quote here and a bracket and a semicolon. And we're not quite done, because notice we've got a print format specifier, so we're going to have to do a little bit of cleanup. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab the radius bit here and control X that, take it out of here, and we're going to put a comma here and a control V. So what we're saying is we're going to say printf for a circle with radius, and then it's going to substitute it in here. And then what we're going to do, and we're splitting the printf, is say printf bracket, no backslash n, just quote this, and we have to get rid of this extra comma here. But now we split one printf onto two separate printfs, and it should do exactly the same thing as the single printf. Okay, so we've got that done. Now I think you can see where we're going with this. So underneath here where it says, choice A, choice B, what are we going to do? Case, single quote, little b, quote, single quote, colon. So that's one of our cases. And the other case is case, quote, big B. Whoops, big B, quote, colon again. Now, again, what we're going to do is let's get rid of this little crutch that says that we need to take into account both of these. Let's bring this up just a little bit. And then we will go, as we've done before, and do this and tab this over, tab this over, tab this over. Let's do it one more time. There we go, to make it look a little prettier. And again, we want to split this guy here. So as we did before, we're just going to put a quote here, a bracket, a semicolon. And what we're going to do is then grab radius here and control X, pull it out of there, put a comma, put a control V, and so we've got that part. Then we're going to put a printf in here. As I said, we're going to split the printfs. And again, we have to take out the extra comma, and we've basically done that. So if our choice is an A, it's going to or a big A, this is our entry point, it's going to do this code. If it's a big A, this is our entry point, it's going to do this code. So any number of cases that we're going to put in, we list them above, and the last case lines up with this code. So this is, if it's a little a we type in, zoom. If it's a big A, it comes in this point, and so on. Same thing here. If case is little b, it comes in and continues on from here. Case big B, it comes in from here and continues on. So that's basically how it's going to work. Now down here, we're going to have case, quote, little x, single quote, colon, case, big X, quote, colon. And again, let's just get rid of this if, which was just a placeholder to remind us of what things we're going to do. And let's bring this up again. Now this is already set to pretty much go. And then the last case isn't really a case. Now we said that if it's an A or it's a B or it's an X, you do these things, else if it's an X. And the last else was what's called the default case. So what I'm going to do is the default is a you're an idiot. For all other cases other than one specified, this is the case we're going to do. You had an invalid choice. Now this should work, but it's not going to work exactly the way we want, and I'll show you why in a second. So let's punch this up and see what happens. So here we are, we're running it. Whoops, there were build errors. Uh-oh. Let's take a look. And what do we got? Warning, warning, error. So let's take a look here. When you have this, warnings are not a big problem, but the errors are. So let's click on where it says 38. I'm going to click on where it says 38. Takes me here. And the error, let's see what it says. Identifier not found. Let's see what that means. So identifier not found. Oh my God. I forgot to put an F in printf. So let's run this up again. So when we run it up this time, it's going to sort of work. If I type G, for G I'm stupid, it does the invalid choice. That's not a problem. Let's run it up again. Let's run X for exit. It says you chose to exit and, oh my God, invalid choice. How can X be an invalid choice? Let's run it up again. And let's hit B. Radius of a sphere, 1. 4.19. Uh-oh, you chose to exit and invalid choice. It's giving everything. What's going to happen, do you think, when I do this? If I select A, well, it's going to do A, B, X, and invalid choice. Let's see. 1, 1. There, it does everything. So everything seems to be working except for one slight problem. And let's see what that slight problem is. Let's go back to full screen mode here. What's happening here is, as I said before, when choice is A, little a, it comes in here and it drops down. And it keeps going through all of this until it hits this bracket and then it says it's done. But we don't want it to do all of this stuff. We want it to drop out and break out of the structure here. And that's why at this point what we need is a break statement. We just type in break. And what's going to happen if I type a little a, it comes in here, does all this, hits the break, and it comes right out of the switch structure. If I hit a capital A, comes in here, hits the break, and it's out. So every one of these unique cases, what we have to do is put in a break statement and a break statement here as well. But the one thing we don't need to do is we don't need to put a break statement after the default, because as soon as it does this, it's going to hit the bracket and it's done anyway. Now let's just take out the extra spaces just to save paper when we're printing out. So this is how your switch case should look, and let me just demonstrate that this indeed does work. So let's hit up F5 and see what goes on. Now in this case, let's check. We'll try A. Let's try the one first. 1, area of a circle, hit enter, it's done. So that seems to work. And I think that if you check out all of these, if we hit a capital B this time, 1 for sphere, it seems to work just like it did before with the other version, which was if else. You chose to exit, F5. So the only thing that was missing for the G I'm stupid is I should put in those break statements. Now to make this thing a little better, and as we said, this structured diagram that we had on the board by your instructor at the start of the period is the same structured diagram for this code, or it can be. Now if you look at Nassy Schneiderman diagrams online, it gives a little different structure for switch case, but it's exactly the same format, and both structured diagrams that you use for if else or switch case can be used for that. Now what I'm going to do is one last thing, and I'm going to just add a structure, and I think your lab instructor should do this as well. I'm going to say do and bracket right above the choice. And then down after this bracket in the switch, I'm going to put another bracket, right bracket, and say underneath it, while choice not equal to, quote, little x, and, which is a double ampersand, choice not equal to big X. And right bracket, semicolon. Let's take a closer look at this. So it's saying after our default bracket, we're going to put another right bracket. And we're going to say while choice not equal to little x, double ampersand, which is the and symbol, choice not equal to big X, and a semicolon at the end. So there's our bracket. And if we take a look up at the top here, the only thing that we really did up at the top was put a do left bracket above the choice menu. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, but let's just see, because this is going to be a segue to what we're going to be doing next week, which is on loops. Let's run this up and see how it's changed, what's going to happen. Now, check this out. This is really slick. When you add the concept of a loop, A, Radius of a sphere 1. Whoops, it didn't hold the output, did it? A 1. So we just have to fix that. B 1. And let's say G for I'm an idiot. Invalid choice goes back, and X, you chose to exit, and it gets it out. So everything seems to work, but we just have to deal with, and that was pretty slick, wasn't it? We just have to deal with this business of making sure it's going to wait. Now before we do any of these, no matter what these choices are, we should really wait. And notice this get ch, it's in the wrong place. So let's take this get ch, control X, and put it right between. Let's take a look here a little more closely. It should be put between the bracket here and the one for the while. So every time in the loop it's going to do the get ch. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put it in here, control V, get ch, and let's run it up this time, and it should hold our output properly, and it's going to be really slick how your program is going to work. And again, you should have a new structure diagram. It's just an outer structure to the structure you already have, so it's really slick. A1, isn't that nice? It holds that. And B, now let's make it capital B. Isn't this a lot easier to check out your code? And finally G, I'm an idiot. Invalid choice, and it stays in the loop until I hit either a capital X or a little x. You chose to exit and you're out. That's a very slick little menu kind of thing, and this is something that you're going to be using similar to this in your project that you're going to be doing. Now to finish this little bit of coding off, and as normal, what we want to do is we want to grab our output and just show what our output does for various things. And we've got basically 4 things: A, B, X, and G. You're an idiot. So let's try a look at the A. Let's hit a 1, and we want to capture that. So right mouse click, edit, mark, grab all this stuff, and this is going to be one of our possible outputs. And we'll right mouse click, and then you're saying to yourself, well, what do I do with this? Well, if I hit enter, I'm right back to here. Let's see if there's some way. Let's go back to our code. Let's bring this up and get rid of this and slide down here. Let's just see if we can put it in the way it is. Right mouse click, or not right mouse click, sorry, just push this down, /* control V, and what we want to do is put a line in as we did before, and we're still running our code, and leave a line. Let's go back up. We're still running our code. Let's hit B, 1, right mouse click, edit, mark. Let's grab all of this, right mouse click, enter. Let's click back to where we were here, click underneath the line, control V, put another line in. So there's our B option. And let's go back to our program currently running. Let's, instead of doing X, let's do the G, I'm stupid thing. Invalid choice. Let's grab that, edit, mark, grab all of this, right mouse click, enter, and unfortunately we can't grab the beep. Let's go down here underneath this line, control V, paste that in, put in another line, and this is showing all the different outputs for the program. Isn't this a lot easier to do when it's in a loop? And let's finally do the X. You chose to exit, edit, mark, grab all this stuff, right mouse click, enter. We're out of our program, and let's just put that in at the last thing here, control V, //. So we have all of our different runs here after our program, and this is what you should save. Now notice up at the top here, we still haven't saved this, so let's make sure we say File, save Lab 9A as this, and we're ready to go to the next lab section. So what we're going to do is go from full screen back to here. We've already saved it, so let's remove this and say remove. And again, we're going to do File, Add, New Item, and we're going to do Lab 9B. So once we've got that done, we've got our default stuff, and if we had been thinking, we could have got all that other stuff. But what I'm going to suggest we do, and let's take a look over here and see what we have to do next. So there's instructor's initials for showing this. Now notice, write a program that calculates parking fees for a multi-level parking garage. ask whether there's a car or truck. So it goes through some stuff here, and you're saying, geez, this is going to be a whatever to do. But let's take a look also. If we go back here, there's one that's already in under course documents, some code very similar to what we need for today. And let's see where we can find that to be. Okay, if we look under course documents, there's a lot of good information in there. And the part under course documents that we're going to need to look at is the stuff on switch case, strangely enough. Now, as I showed before, there's a lot of other good information in here, and we're going to be going into the switch case section here and looking at the information there. Now, it goes through if else, switch case. It goes through this in detail. I'm just going to slide through this, and you should read through this. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice is that it's not printable. Why did I make it not printable? Because it's important enough to make your own notes on this, and this is important enough to write down. And I figure if you write stuff down, chances are you'll remember it. Now notice here, this is a little different than what we were doing. We have integers as case. Notice %i. Integers don't have the quotes around them. And let's take a look further up. In the case of a character, they do have single quotes around them, and in case of integer, they don't. So that's a big difference. Now this is what we're going to need for today, and have this open, but also look at your lab sheet. Let's go back and look at our lab sheet at some point. But you're going to see that the lab sheet, the second thing on lab 9, it says it's a parking garage, which is exactly what this is. And it goes through and it says it's to the nearest hour. And the way it works is this: if time is your hours, if you type in 1, it's going to say, as it says here, the first hour costs $3.50. There's my $3.50. Now for the second hour, it's going to cost $5, which is actually it's going to cost $1.50 for the second hour, $1.50 for the second hour plus $3.50 gives us our $5. So for 2 hours, it's going to cost us $5. But this next part is really slick, how they've done it for default. And this is a beautiful way of using the default function. What it's saying is, well, after 2 hours, you're going to pay $5 for the first 2 hours, which is fine. But then you're going to pay an additional fee, and each additional hour is going to be $2. So there's our $2. There's $5 for the first 2 hours. And so $2. Now look at how this works. If this is 3, time is 3 minus 2, which is 1 extra hour. For 3, that's perfect. If this is 4, then 4 minus 2 is 2 hours at $2. If this is 5, 5 minus 2, 3 hours at $2. So this is a really slick way of using default. For the first hour, $3.50, second hour, $5. After that, $5 plus, notice the offset is 2, time minus these two cases times the actual additional amount. That's beautiful, isn't it? So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this because we're going to need this. Well, before we grab anything, let's go back and take a look at what else sort of things we're going to need to start off our new program. We're going to need, obviously, this include section because we're lazy. Let's Control C, and once we've done that, we can then remove, because we've saved this, remove this from our source files for now. It's still there. And we'll say new item. And again, we're going to do this. We're going to say lab 9b. Whoops. 9b. And again, it's assumed that we're going to use our default layout. And what we've got are of being empty project. So we've got this in here. Now what we're going to do is let's slide back over here and see if we can grab this. Is it going to allow us to grab it? I don't know. Let's see. Control C. See, can we paste it in? No, we can't. So one of the things we're going to have to do is learn a little bit about what's there, read it over because it's not printable, so you better make your notes, and so forth. So let's go back to full screen mode, and we're going to use some of this stuff. We'll just have to switch back and forth here. And so let's say integer main bracket bracket, and let's put our opening and closing brackets around this. And what we're going to do is change this program to use menu for choice. In this case, program to calculate fees for parking garage. Okay. So what we're going to do to make things fairly straightforward, we're going to change this Control C, because it's getting to be a bit of a long lab, let's put in same sort of thing here. We've got our includes done. So all we have to do is really just start writing our code for this part. Okay, to write our code, let's see. First thing we're going to need again is variable declarations. Whoa. And we're going to need, well, let's not explain to user. And one of the reasons we don't need to explain to user for this thing is this is going to be a program that the guy is going to be running the whole day. And so he's going to have a little bit of training. So he doesn't need, it's not something casual. He's going to do this all the time. So we don't need to explain to user. We need get user input. And from this, we're going to provide a selection, and based on the selection everything is going to grow from here, and we're going to do various calculations based on that selection. So that's basically the framework we're going to work with. Now let's take a look, and we'll slide back to what we have here. We're going to have a time in hours, but also, and we're going to have to refer back to this at some point. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the actual lab so we can take a look at it. So let's do that. Let's take a look at what it is we have to do. In this case, it says write a program that calculates parking fees, and it's going to be $2 for the first hour. And before we do any of this stuff, we have to ask whether we're using a car or a truck. And if it's a car, it's going to be $2 for the first hour and $1.80 for the second hour, which means it's going to be a total of $2 plus $1.80, $3.80 for 2 hours being there, plus $1.50 for each additional hour. And it says that's fine, and if you read through this it means that's perfect for a car. So if they're there for 1 hour, $2. There for 2 hours, $3.80. There for say another few hours, it's $1.50 for each additional hour plus $3.80 for the first 2 hours. The only difference is if it's a truck, just add $2 and you're done. So that's basically what we're going to have to do. So we're going to actually use some of this, but the first thing we're going to have to do, as it says back here, is we have to first ask whether it's a car or a truck. So let's see, we're going to, from this, what we need. So that means we're going to need to have a variable that's a character and another one that's a integer, because that's what we're going to have for the number of hours, because the hours are to the nearest hour. You're not going to have 1.5 hours. For instance, if you're there for 15 minutes, they charge you an hour, don't they? If you're there for an hour and 15, they charge you for 2 hours. So it's to the nearest hour. And I think if you're smart, you'd like knock down your house or something, put up a parking garage and go retire down to the south. But anyway, with the fees they're charging these days. But let's get started on this. We need a character for car or truck. We need an integer for the number of hours, but we also need a float to keep track of how many dollars and cents that we're going to be charging this person. So let's take a look. And so when we go back to here, one of the things we're going to have to do is under variable declarations, we're going to have a char, and I'm going to call it vehicle. And we're going to have an integer. We could call it anything. I'm going to call it time, as we saw originally in that first program. Let's go full screen so you can see this a little better. And also we're going to need float, and I'm going to just call it fee. So that's it. Now, as it says, the first thing we have to do is get whether it's a car or truck. So printf, and we're just going to make this very simple. Oops, before the get user input, since we don't have an explain function, let's do a system clear screen. And then we're going to printf after this C for car, comma, T for truck. So, and we're going to have to be able to accept and process either uppercase or lowercase things. Now, before we do this, as we saw before, this is critical. You're going to have to flush standard in, flush the keyboard buffer before you do any characters. That's an essential thing. So we've got if it's car or truck. Then after that, we have to ask for the number of hours. And I I forgot to quote, didn't I? You can see, doesn't color syntax highlighting, isn't it marvelous? So number of hours. And what did we forget to here after the F flush? We forgot to put in the scanf. And there's a little method to my madness here. I'm going to put percent %, quote, comma, ampersand. And I'm just going to go up here, as we said before, Control C the thing so you don't screw up the title. Now, Scanf input this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab both of these because I typed them in, Control C, and I'm going to Control V down here. I told you there's a little bit of method, probably to my madness, but F flush standard in, Scanf percent I for integer. You're almost thinking, geez, it should be, percent F or something, but we'll put in there. So there's our get user input. We've got whether it's a car or truck, and we've got the number of hours. Now based on this, we're going to use switch case, and this is where we're going to use what we learned over here. So let's go back and take a look at it again. I think it was under here. And so this is where we're going to have to look at this and figure out the time for a car, and later we'll just put a very simple if it's a truck, just add $2. So let's try that. So very simply, switch, just like the other one, time. And again, we're not putting any we're not putting any semicolons here. It's bracket and bracket again. These are open and closed brackets. This is how switch time is based. So it's going to be based on time. So switch on. So we have case 1 hour. Notice there's no quotes here. And our fee for 1 hour, if we read back, let's take a look at the actual lab we're doing here. That's the other one. Let's take a look at the one we're doing. For 1 hour, case is $2. So what that means is fee is 2.00, and that's going to be for this. Now remember what we got to do at this point? Yep, we got to put in a break. So if for 1 hour, because we typed in 1 hour, fee is $2, we're done. But if it's not 1 hour, it could be 2 hours, case 2. And if you read through this, and let's take a look at that. Oops, this one here. It's $1.80 for the second hour. So it was $2 for the first hour, $1.80 for the second. That's a total of $3.80. So let's go back here and put in fee. Whoops, I shouldn't have just said fee. It should be fee gets. Fee equals $2. So fee equals 3.80. So that's fine. And again, we put in break. Now once we've got that done, this is where the default case comes in. So the default says the fee is going to equal the $3.80 for the 2 hours, because it's going to be, to get to default, it has to be bigger than 2 hours, $3.80 plus the additional amount, which is $1.50, times the time minus 2. And we don't need a break. That's what we've got there. So if I type in 1 hour, $2, 2 hours, $3.80, 4 hours, it's going to be 4 minus 2, 2 hours at the $1.50 plus $3.80 for the first 2 hours. This is going to work. Now the only thing we have to take into account is truck or car, because what we have here right now is perfect for a car. So all we have to do, and this is the if statement, if vehicle, now I don't want to type if I don't have to, I'm lazy, I'm just going to Control C. If vehicle equals, quote, C, or, and that's that pipe sign we talked about, and I'm going to do Control V, I love it, equals, quote, big C. Oops, that's wrong, isn't it? It's truck. Car isn't special, truck is. So capital T or big T. So if it's a special case, only for the special case, fee equals fee plus 2.00. So what this is saying is, if it's a car, what you get out of here is perfect, and it's not going to do this if, because if it's not a truck, it's going to leave the fee alone. If it is a truck, all it's going to do is add $2 to fee. Either way, when you get to this point where the cursor is, what you're going to find is fee is going to be properly calculated. So all we have to do is say printf \n cost before, and we can do this. Percent, where is it? Percent C is percent .2f. Why .2f? Because you want dollars and cents. So what we're going to say is vehicle. So it's going to tell us whether it's a car or truck. And then we're going to put in fee. And the last thing we need to do is put in get ch. Now, do you notice that there's something wrong here? Is there something wrong? Let's take a look. There's our bracket for main. There's our closing bracket for main. Where did this bracket come from? We have, this is switch, boom. So we've got an extra bracket in here. I'm not sure where that came from. And what do we need here? Return, I think I may even forgot it in the last program, return 0. And that should work. Let's punch it up and see. Building, compiling, boom, boom, boom. Ah, error. It says missing semicolon before the return. And there's only one error. Let's double click on that. Missing semicolon. I forgot the semicolon here. And this is a classical error that you're going to make. Semicolons, missing semicolons. It's going to link and it should work. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have to run it a number of times. Let's try car, 1 hour, $2. Perfect. Now you can see if we keep running it, it's going to be a pain, isn't it, to go through all these possible cases. So what do you think our answer is for this? Loop it, of course. So get user input, clear the screen, and it's going to get ch. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to make it an infinite loop, because what we want to do is we don't care how many times we're going to run this, but we're going to have to start here at getting user input. I'm just going to say do, and on the next line I'm going to put a left brace bracket just the way we did before, and right before the get ch I'm going to put a right bracket, and I'm going to say while 1, which means forever, while 1. So if I do a do while 1, it's just going to keep going like the Energizer Bunny. And it's never going to terminate unless we actually Control C or close the DOS screen. Let's try running that up and see if we can do some copying and pasting, which is going to make this a lot easier, as we did in our last program, to check the output. Let's run it up. Okay, let's do car, 1 hour, $2. Car, $2, or 2 hours, $3.80. Now we can be capturing this. You know how to capture it, and you can put this in as we did before. Now car, let's try and do this as a standard thing. Let's see what's going to make sense. Let's try for 6 hours. Now if you think about it, it's going to be 4 hours at $1.50. $4.50 is $6 plus $3.80 should be $9.80, and it does work. So what I need you to show your lab instructor, and you can copy and paste this: car, 1 hour, $2. Car, 1 hour, whoops. Car, 2 hours, $3.80. Car, 6 hours, $9.80. Now the only difference is for truck. Let's try truck. T, 1 hour, $4. Truck, 2 hours, $5.80, because that's an extra $2. And truck, 6, was $9.80 before, should be $11.80. So if you can copy and paste this in and save it, you've got this lab done and you've got your second initial. Congratulations. Now to get out of this, we can try holding down Control and pressing C, and it says first exception, and we can say continue, and it should drop it out, and it says program has exited with code blah blah blah. Who cares? We're out. Or you could have actually just closed the thing down. So to do this, as I said, if we want to run it up, I'll just show you because I know you're a little bit shy about doing this. 1 hour, right mouse click, edit, mark, grab. So let's just grab this quickly, right mouse click, and then go back down to our program, slide down here as we did before. I'll just get you started on this, and Control V, put a line across, and then go back to your program, just Alt Tab over here, and hit enter, hit C, hit 2 hours, and right mouse click, and so on. So just do that, have those cases, mark this, grab this, and so you're going to have 6 cases all together. And we can go back to our program here, just underneath, hit an enter key on this, Control V, put another line through. So you should have the cases of this for car and 1 hour, 2 hours, 6 hours, truck, same thing. When you show that to your instructor, you're done. Hopefully you've had a lot of fun this lab. See you next time.